There we go. So welcome, ladies. Welcome, my Living Well ladies, which I have to tell you a funny story. When I was single, like about 18 years old, I was an aerobics instructor because that's what you had to do in the 80s. And I worked for a place called Living Well, and it was called Living Well Ladies. So I kind of laugh when I be like, "Hey, Living Well ladies, how are you?" So, but I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited to have our first Zoom meeting for this group. And we're going to talk today about sugar addiction and carbohydrates, kind of do an overall reminder of everything and get some insight from you guys, I hope too. So I can't see the chat right now just because of the way I'm sharing my screen. So I'll look at that when I stop sharing at the end, and then we'll do questions. But in the meantime, I'll share a few things. We're going to actually discuss that questionnaire. I think everybody got the questionnaire done. So let's look at the first part of that. And was this eye-opening to anybody, or was it something you've ever done before? Michelle, I'll just ask you because I know you.
I haven't done like a questionnaire like this before. I want to say I think it was pretty. I know I have a sugar addiction, so it wasn't that shocking to me.
Okay. All right, let me move this over so I'm not looking way over there. Okay, so for the questions, how often do you eat or drink sugary foods or beverages, including ones made with non-calorie sweeteners? So I was really curious, especially about drinking sugary stuff and beverages, because that's huge. That's one of the first things that if you're going to lower your carbs, lower your sugar intake, that you focus on. So because it just raises your blood sugar so fast and excuse me, drops it so much because your body the insulin can't even keep up with getting it down where it needs to be at a decent time. So drinking sugary foods and beverages, well, it's going to be beverages, is definitely something that you're going to do. You're going to feel better overall when you stop doing that on a regular basis. Okay. And I know we've talked a little bit about coffee, and sometimes you still have a little bit of sweet in your coffee. And I'm working with Michelle with that. She's got a CGM. So we're watching what happens with her blood sugar and monitoring that. But overall, if you struggle with insulin resistance, it's definitely something to focus on. The second one is, how much sugar or sweetener do you usually add to your coffee? Again, kind of the same thing we're talking about there, and just want you guys to be aware of it. Number 3, how often do you go out of your way to get something sugary like ice cream or a donut shop, or stopping at the store just to buy candy, or going to the gas station? And what I didn't realize is what a pattern and a habit it was for me to be excited to get gas, because I would go in and get something at the gas station every time, or in the checkout lane, just kind of looking at everything and deciding what I wanted that day. And just, this is really all about becoming aware, just becoming aware of what you're doing. And because we can't address it until we're aware of it. And then the fourth one, do you ever eat sugary foods secretly? So this is definitely something to think about. I always struggled with this. I would hide wrappers, and I would have something, like I'd have something in the car, and then I'd make sure I threw the wrappers away. And, these are indicators that, okay, I might have a problem here. And that was definitely me, so something to think about. Number 5, what's your typical breakfast like? And this is really important because breakfast starts our day. Breakfast is not the most important meal of the day, despite what we've been told for eons. That was actually brought about by Kellogg's, was behind that whole promotion that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And I can't imagine why they would promote that, right? But so think what you have for breakfast really sets the tone for your day. And if you're ending up, you're doing something like a sugary cereal or muffin or pastry, and you're getting a lot of carbs first thing in the morning, it's going to affect your day. It's going to probably send you on a roller coaster all day. So starting your day well with a good protein rich, low carb breakfast is a great thing for the rest of your day. So I really, really encourage you to do that. And a lot of times people think, well, breakfast is a big deal. If you can get breakfast reined in, a lot of times that really helps you overall in the long run, because a lot of people think that like oatmeal is a great breakfast option, when really oatmeal is a very high carbohydrate thing, and our body does not need oatmeal. Your body is not deficient of oatmeal in any way, shape, or form. And the oatmeal that we get nowadays, kind of a side note here, is extremely filled with pesticides, and it's really amazing. I don't think I've done a deep dive with this group or anything, but if you just Google that, the pesticides in our oatmeals, and I could put some videos out to share with you guys too. It's amazing what's in our oatmeal now, and it's not good for us. It's really not. It's very, very rare, even when you try to get the organic, to get a healthy oatmeal today. Number 6, do you ever feel powerless in front of sugary foods or high carb foods such as breads, pastas, and rice? Or I'm going to say a bowl of nachos at the table, a basket of nachos at a Mexican restaurant. Do you just feel like there is no way that I can resist that? And if that is how you feel, again, that's an indication that you have an addiction with sugar and carbs, because it becomes such a deep pattern with us that we just can't even imagine that we could break from it. Okay. Number 7, while indulging, do you ever tell yourself that this is the last time you'll ever eat like this? And I'm just going to have this one last treat and then I'm done. And, I will start again on Monday. All of these things that we tell ourselves, that we just kind of gaslight ourselves basically to say, oh, I'm just going to have this one thing. And you know what? Just a little bit off. When we tell ourselves that we're just going to do this little bit, it reminds me of a story that I've shared in the past about our daughter. Lauren was driving her pickup truck down a country road here. I was actually up north camping with some friends, and I got a call because while she was driving, she had a tick on her leg that she noticed, and it was crawling towards inside her shorts. And so she panicked, and in doing that, she turned the wheel. And when she did, she just caught the edge of the gravel and it sucked her down into the ravine. Like she tried to save it, but it just pulled her right down into a ditch. And she went about 75 feet and hit a tree, and she's okay. Totaled her truck completely. But I always think of that, like that little bit off. Like, I'm just going to do this one last time. We convince ourselves, I'm just going to have this little bit, and just that little veer off can pull us in and send us careening down into a pattern that we're trying to avoid. So I always think of that, excuse me, when I think of just, oh, this one last time, or just this one little bit. Some people can moderate well and they can get right back on track, and that's great if that's you. It's not been my history, so I have to really avoid things like that. So my question to you guys is, how do you feel about these answers? And do you want these answers to change? And then we can talk about next steps. But anybody want to share like how, what you thought after doing this? Michelle, you said you were like, this is not a big surprise to you.
Mm-hmm. I will say the hiding of the wrappers, it did make me feel a little seen, because I was like, oh, I'm not the only one that does that. And I'm every time I've done that, I'm like, this is a problem.
Right. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you being vulnerable, because you're absolutely right. And I talk to people all day long that is their truth also. So
Mhm.
you are definitely seeing it, not alone. So then we need to think about what our next steps. Well, number one, you are in a great next step in this group. I think that you've already shown like, okay, this is clear. I have a problem because, for a lot of times people will say to me, because I put in here not just sugar, but also carbohydrates and breads. And they'll be like, I'm fine. I just, no, but I like my bread. But I don't, people tell me all the time they don't like sweets. But then we start talking about breads and pastas and rice and, oh, well, yeah, every day, and then they try to stop that and they realize, oh, shoot, I do have a problem here. So, so next steps are, you are in the next steps. And I think that is great. We're going to just kind of solidify what we've talked about in the past about carbohydrates is the same as sugar, because all carbohydrates turn into sugar in the body, including grains, fruits, and vegetables. I'm not worried about you overeating vegetables at all. So you have your way with vegetables. Now, remember though, tubers such as potatoes and things that grow under the ground, if it grows under the ground, that's considered where the plant keeps its sugar. It's like its sugar holder. So remember, those underground plants like potatoes and carrots, some carrots and different things, they are going to have high sugar amounts. So while I don't say reduce vegetables, I definitely personally avoid potatoes because those are just sugar bombs for me. So you have got to figure out what is balanced for you. And maybe, a half a sweet potato once in a while is fine. And it doesn't affect you, but it could send you into cravings if it spikes your blood sugar. As carbs break down in the body and they raise our blood sugar. So say you eat a banana, this says 17 grams of carbs. Every banana is going to be different. That's a small banana. Carbs are broken down into glucose, and then the glucose enters our bloodstream. Okay. The non-bread, obviously, a lot more carbs, a lot more glucose in our bloodstream. And what happens then, once that's in our bloodstream, is that our body says, there's too much blood. It doesn't like a lot of blood in our bloodstream. And so it wants to bring that level down. So our pancreas is going to secrete insulin. And that insulin it almost works like a key to open up our cells and shuttle in that glucose. Okay. So insulin's a key, opens those cells, puts that glucose into a cell to do the work it needs to do, to give that cell energy and to do all the things. Well, often we have too much glucose in our bloodstream. So then what happens is the cells start filling up. So it has to be stored as fat because our body has to get it out of our bloodstream. It wants to have a balanced blood sugar. And side note, our body only needs approximately 1 teaspoon of sugar coursing through our bloodstream at any time. Now, if you were extremely low carb and literally not having any carbohydrates, you might think, and this is where fear comes in with a lot of friends who will be like, you can't just your body needs glucose. Your brain needs glucose. It absolutely does. But it needs only 1 teaspoon. And if you are not giving it through your diet, that 1 teaspoon, your liver will produce exactly what you need. So you never have to worry about eating so low carbs that you don't have enough, unless you have a blood sugar issue and you're trying to really watch that situation. That would mostly be a type 1 situation, but sometimes with type 2, we have to pay attention to that too. So, it's going to be stored. So like I said, if there's too much, the body's going to store it as fat. And then that fat just accumulates, as we know. So remember, insulin's job is to store extra glucose as fat. So before you eat, sometimes carbohydrates, you can think to yourself, all right, my body's going to want to store this as fat if it doesn't need it to work. So that's how that works. What also ends up happening is as we overload our system, our bloodstream with glucose, our cells start becoming resistant to that little key of insulin. And it no longer lets that insulin open up the key to go into the cells. So that's what insulin resistant means. Okay. Your cells are becoming resistant because they're full. They have enough. They don't want any more. And then that starts leading to inflammation, overload of fat cells, all the things. So does that help, or are there any questions with any of that? Raise your hand if you have anything that you're like, nope. I know, Joanne, you've been through a lot of this too, in our class that we did at Citadel. So again, I'm just trying to show you and remind you, carbohydrates are found in a wide array of both healthy and unhealthy foods. You've got white bread, you've got whole grain bread, which is funny that people think, we usually think, well, whole grain is going to be better for me. It's actually usually higher in carbs. And sourdough, same thing. And I have not done this personally, but there's some people that I follow on social media, and they will take their CGM and they'll show you the results of what happens when they eat certain foods. So they'll be like, white bread did this, whole grain bread did this, sourdough did this. And I'll tell you, they are not different. They're all spiking the same. So while some people say that the sourdough is healthier for us, my question would be, what is your goal in the health? Is it to not spike your blood sugar? Because then sourdough is not going to be good. Is it to have a bread that is less processed possibly? Then yes, that could be, if that's your goal. All of this is about our personal goals. Bagels, obviously, very high in carbohydrates, probably expected that. Apples, bananas, cereal, very high in carbohydrates. I thought this was interesting, this Lenny and Larry's cookie, which you can pick, protein cookie, not just cookie, protein cookie, has 59 grams of carbs. These are things we would look at the gas station and go, oh, I'm going to get a protein cookie. Sue said I need more protein. But look at that sugar. It's not worth it. That protein, and it's probably not even a great protein. It's probably very highly processed. Cupcakes are 30. Now, you know that you're eating a cupcake or you're eating a banana, but your body, as it's converted into sugar, is only seeing that sugar amount. So our body is converting all those carbohydrates into sugar. At the bottom, let's look at the French fries are very high. And then with the French fries, you're also getting seed oils. So new study came out about French fries, that a French fry is per French fry is just as damaging to your body as a cigarette is. So like one French fry to one cigarette, the amount of damage because of the rancid seed oils that was probably made with. And that's the biggest thing. And then you're also getting a little bit of a bump with carbs, but it's that rancid oil is one of the biggest reasons not to eat French fries. Now, I know people who make them with beef tallow, and they'll fry up potatoes at home with beef tallow. And if your goal is not to have those unhealthy seed oils and you want that as a treat once in a while, then it's a way healthier option than getting French fries anywhere you'd buy them, in a fast food, or even especially in a pub or a bar. And having been a restaurant owner, I can tell you that oil is not being changed as regularly as you think. And even if it was, it's still bad for you. And the seed oils, vegetable oils are so bad for us. They just think of them as just being like a nail file in your arteries. They really are. A can of Coke, we know that's high. Soft pretzel, 80 grams. Come on. That doesn't seem fair, but it is. But then let's look at steak, 0 carbs. Cheese, very low carb. Eggs, bacon, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs is one of the things that one of the doctors actually that I follow, he has a big thing when you're trying to break the sugar, focus on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and it will lower your blood sugar. You'll start to feel better. Again, more on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are just chains of sugar linked together. All carbohydrates turn into sugar in the body, and most processed foods are high in carbohydrates. So the granola bar that's supposed to be healthier, definitely not. Read your labels. You have to become just a fanatic about labels and understanding what is in this item that I'm about to eat. I can't tell you enough about that. Like you have to be just an absolute label detective nowadays, because on the front it's going to say all natural, even organic, keto, whatever it says. Turn it around and look at that label and know that every carbohydrate divided by 4 is a teaspoon of sugar. Okay. I think. And then I wanted to touch base real quick on how we got here. And the 1977 food pyramid here shows us, I mean, back in that day, way back in the day, back before the 50s, before Western oil and all the things came out, they ate with beef tallow. They ate bacon and eggs for breakfast. I mean, we were just a healthier, we were eating much better than we are today. What happened? Well, one of the things that happened is this food pyramid. Now, this food pyramid was very much driven by the fact that President Eisenhower, back in the 50s, he had a heart attack. It set the nation reeling. They were like, what in the world? And they decided that it had to be the saturated fat in his diet. It had to be all the fat that he was eating. And a man named Ancel Keys, Ancel, Ancel Keys, feel free to look that up and do a little digging on that. He changed the whole atmosphere of the food too, because he demonized fat. Said fat is bad for you. Fat is awful. We need more grains. Now, the interesting thing about Eisenhower is they never paid attention to the fact that he was an extremely heavy smoker, like 4 packs a day. But no, that had nothing to do with the heart attack. It had to be the saturated fat. So it changed a whole nation's trajectory of how we ate because of this. Then when Nixon was as a president, he agreed to sell millions of bushels of grain to the Soviet Union. And in doing that, they pushed the farmers, make the grain, make the grain, make the grain. And then there was this huge surplus of grain. So they created this food pyramid to also help solve this problem of all the grain that we had in the world. At first, it was like 3 to 4 servings a day. And then they ended up switching it to like 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta in a day. And do you know that if you follow this food pyramid, and I have other videos I can share with you on this, proof of this and research, if you follow this will, within 20 years, lead you to being type 2 diabetic. Absolutely. And honestly, I say 20 years because then you'll be diagnosed and you'll be full on and you'll have damage and all that. It will take weeks before your blood sugar is raising it will just, it's amazing to look at. And there's some of you may have seen that video. I think it's called Sugar. And it's where a guy who was very healthy started eating this way, like the recommended daily allowances of all these things, and how sick he got within 2 months. Like sick. It was bad. Like, I'll try to throw these things in our group for you. So anyways, I just want you to really think about where all this happened and why now, as a nation, only 12% of Americans are considered metabolically healthy. And hopefully you saw that last video I did about metabolic health. I think that's my last one. Okay. And then this is what we're going to focus on. 12% of Americans, that's really bad. And before I started eating this way, that was totally me. That is my story, is how sick I was with that. But this is a metabolically healthy food pyramid. Okay. So we are going to focus on foods that are low in refined carbohydrates. Sorry, Mark just came in. The dog's barking. Foods that are low in refined carbohydrates and sugar, and low in unhealthy oils. And then foods that are high in protein and healthy fats. Because carbohydrates, an overload of carbohydrates, is what makes us sick and fat. Proteins and healthy fats do not. Okay. My website has some printable food lists for you. And then I have that little icon from Carb Manager. I would love for you guys to get involved and download the Carb Manager app. It's CARB Manager. It's an app. You can download it to your phone, and it'll take you through a whole profile of where you're at now, where you want to be. I would, when you choose the kind of plan you want, I would choose it somewhere within the ketogenic state of, more protein, less carbs. And because you might be surprised at where you're at and how you're eating until you start paying attention really close. And what I love about Carb Manager, you just use the free version, and you can also do it on your computer at home, in your house, because I like to kind of go back and forth and they sync together. So that's really helpful. And I think they say that people who track their food are 50% more successful in this journey. And so this is a really great tool. A lot of you were in the second month of doing this sugar-free and grain-free lifestyle. So this is a great way to implement that. So, all right, I am going to stop sharing my screen now. And are there anybody have any questions, or, I would love to hear from you who've started doing this. How are you feeling? Like Michelle, how are you feeling now that you've been living this way? And then you and I just talked about how you kind of, went back and forth a little bit, and tell us a little about your journey.
I definitely notice I have more energy when I'm eating better. I just did like a reset and started using the Carb Manager app again. I think what's helpful with that is the first day you download the app, eat like what you normally eat, just to see like how high everything is. And then after that, it's a really good accountability tool. Like sometimes I'll want something and I scan it. Always scan it first before you eat it. And then it helps you decide if it's worth it or not. This is random, but where do you buy beef tallow? I've never seen that in the store.
It is in the store. Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
And then sometimes like you may have to go to specialty, but I definitely have seen it even at Meijer. So
okay.
Otherwise a meat market or something like that would be where you get something like that. But I use a lot of coconut oil. I use a lot of butter, depending how high your heat is that you're using. Beef tallow is great for high heat.
Do you use ghee at all? I use a lot of ghee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely ghee. Okay. That's GHEE, in case anyone's wondering what that is. And it's what that is almost like the whole most dense part of butter when you get the moisture out is what that is. So,
and it's really yummy too.
It is very yummy. It's very rich and it's really good. Other than that, what I've been getting, it's just very interesting. At Meijer, you can get it locally, and I've been getting Amish rolled butter. So you buy it like in this roll, and it's Amish butter, and it's very clean. It's like hard, it's just heavy cream. So it's really good.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Because everything's better with butter.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
Hey, Sue.
Questions? Yeah.
One thing that I found doing the September month thing, when I followed the plan pretty well, I was able to lose like 5 pounds and notice less bloating and stuff in my stomach area. But then and that took like a whole month. And then like 1 or 2 days of cheating and it all goes to pot and came right back.
Yeah. Well, and part of what's happening, I wouldn't say that like all the fat came back. I bet you lost fat over that month of the 5 pounds, but I'll bet what you gained right away was probably a lot of fluid, because right away your body's going to start, it's going to get bloated and you're going to hold fluid. So and when we first start this journey too, we lose a lot of fluid, which is exactly why we talk about getting the electrolytes. So I'll bet that it's not necessarily that you gained it all back, but at the same time, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's, this isn't one of those, and that's why I talk so much about this being a journey of our life, because not just a diet, because the diet, it will go up and down. And this is, it's coming into that place of, I'm taking care of myself and eating in a way that is going to help me live longer and help with the rest of my life. And so there are times that you're gonna, if you choose, have a weekend or a vacation or whatever, and you choose to indulge during that time, you are going to see a weight gain right away. But once you get back in the program, it should come off faster. That's history has shown me that, and other people that I've worked with, that it does come off faster than. So it's one of those things we have to decide. Do we want to, try to moderate for a season and know that that's going to happen, or do we want to stay off altogether? I think there's no right answer. You've got to decide what works best for you, because there are times that we're with other people and we're in connection, and community is more important in that moment than staying strictly to our diet. And we feel that way anyway. But ultimately, what I would love to see and what I'm working on in my life is that I recognize that the food isn't what connects me, it's the relationship, Yeah. Again, this isn't a straight line journey. This is through ebbs and flows and learning. And so, yeah, but I'm not surprised at that. Unfortunately, it kind of stinks, but you'll get back there. You will.
Hence the October group.
There you go. I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so that is basically what I wanted to share with you guys and touch base on. Are there any topics that you're thinking or questions you have, like, to hit on at another time, or what is the most helpful for you in this? Or Shonda, what do you have to share? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Sue, for this. I looked at that addiction worksheet, and prior to September, I probably would have been all of that.
Yeah.
But now, since September, the cravings have gone away, the temptation, because I'm not empty nester anymore. So the foods are readily available and they're not a temptation. And I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah.
And I think it was because of bringing it to the forefront of my awareness and keeping it in my awareness. Like you put that one about with the sugar image, the sugar there with the word poison written in it. I mean, that's how I've had to think of it. And that is a really good image of what I've been thinking.
Yeah.
And so then you talked about sweeteners. I do drink I don't drink coffee, but I drink mushroom coffee, and I do use a no carb stevia. And so as a sweetener, so I don't get spikes and I don't get cravings from using that type of alternative, a healthier no carb thing. But I know going completely keto, for me, I did keto for 2 years, and I'm one of the rare people that it raised the cholesterol. And so,
well,
yeah.
Did you dig into, how did your triglycerides do?
Okay, but I eliminated the cheese. Once I eliminated the cheese, then using butter, and I eliminated milk, a lot of dairy products other than the butter and eggs. Everything else is really moderation. Like if I have a slice of cheese on a hamburger, that's not a big deal. But having all those cheesy keto delicacies, I mean, I got into that. I mean, but it was too much for me.
Okay.
Because my cholesterol is back down since I kind of mixed paleo and keto. I kind of go back and forth between those two.
I think that's a good thing to do too. They say is to flex between, because when you're in a ketogenic state, you're in a state of ketosis. So your body's burning fat for fuel, which is really good for you. But they say it's also good to kind of flex back and forth between being a glucose burner and a keto burner, or ketones, burning ketones, burning fat for fuel. So the interesting thing though is being able to balance that with healthy carbs.
Right, healthy. So I keep the low glycemic carbs
Yeah.
As far as my fruit and vegetables, which I feel very limited. And that's the thing I wanted to get to, is that I do feel my options are very limited with the diet, but I'm okay with it just for myself. But having a family, that is a different thing. And so, I mean, last night I said, y'all do what y'all want to do and do what we're going to do. And I'm finally said, let's just be okay with doing separate meals. And so that may be what we have to do, because
Yeah.
they don't want to eat the way I'm eating.
Right. And sometimes I would make a meal, but then I would make sure I had enough in there that I could pull out just for me. Like, so I would make the potatoes and the steak or meat and salad, but then I would just have meat and salad, And so,
Yeah, we've done that too, like with the pasta. They wanted pasta, so we browned the meat. I pulled that out. They mixed it with the sauce and the pasta to have that, and then I had the meat and a salad, or meat and another vegetable, like what you said. So, yeah.
And it's interesting because in doing some of that, like my husband would watch how I was doing it, and he saw the results and how I felt. And he started to slowly then wanting to get closer to what I was doing. And now we're basically doing the exact same thing. So,
yeah, my husband's gravitating toward it too.
yeah.
So,
but it wasn't because I told him he had to. That's the worst way to do it, by being like, oh, you should do this, or lecturing him on everything. I would talk about things, but like I would talk about it later or at a different time. I wouldn't sit there and talk while he's eating potatoes about how bad potatoes were, So it'd be like something like, hey, I was reading this today, and I'm not going to be eating potatoes because I learned that they're spiking my blood sugar. And so I kind of share that stuff, but I would just really think about how I did it, and when I did it. And yeah.
right.
And then when my daughter comes home for the weekend, it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Because she brings all her food with her. And like you said, you've got the people in the house, and goodness. So, and I can resist it way easier than my husband. So he struggles harder right now, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with the tracking, you mentioned that up, and I had told you I had already, the day you told about Carb Manager, I had already finished my trial on my Fitness Pal, and it took the payment out that same day. So I'm using that one. But I realized that I was really diligent about tracking all through September. But then last week, so I just looked, 7 days I didn't track. I've stayed on track. I know I've stayed on track, but I'm not measuring and counting and all the preciseness. So, and I still feel fine, but I didn't track. So what suggestions do you have about tracking and staying on? Because I just, while you were talking about that, I'm like, opened up my app and updated so far, because it's only 9:44 here. So I haven't had that much to try to remember.
And Shonda's in Texas. So, what? I don't track it all right now, unless I were to all of a sudden, start trying to figure out what is happening. I'm gaining weight or something. Then I might, get back into it. But it's really a great tool, especially in the beginning, because you don't know, you just don't know what you don't know. And so I really encourage, whenever I have new coaching clients, I'm like, and like with Michelle, I tell them for almost a week, don't change anything, just start monitoring it. Well, they almost always start changing before that, because they start seeing all the effects of what they're eating, and seeing how high the carbs are. But if you know where you're at, and you know what you can have, and you're feeling good, I wouldn't even worry about it.
Yeah, because a lot of it's the same repeat, just repeat over and over. It's not anything different. I haven't been exploring outside what I know is working.
And I didn't focus on this at all in September, like tracking, because I just wanted to focus on sugar. And I know that we're kind of in that next month with people like, okay, this is kind of the next step then, is let's really pay attention to where the carbs are. Because, we are like, okay, we're off sugar, but now I'm eating, and I didn't talk about really potatoes or any of that stuff. We didn't focus on that as much as we focused on sugar and grain. So that's why getting into this month, I wanted to like, okay, here's next level, but you're farther down the road, you know, and so you know where you're at with that. So I wouldn't worry about it unless you start feeling like, oh, I really need to get back on track. I'm because carbs creep, you know, if you've been doing this long, you know,
they can creep, and I don't want to lose that discipline.
yeah.
And where I find it, I stop tracking is when there's too many mix of a food and I have to try to figure out the portions.
Eating out too is another hard one.
Do what?
Eating out or at someone's house or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So it's, you know, doing the food combinations when you have a mix of, you know, say like my husband likes to fix, you know, turkey sausage, scrambled turkey sausage with scrambled eggs with bell peppers and onion and tomato, whatever, all those little vegetables. So it's all healthy, but how do you figure that out when you're cooking for a whole family? How do you figure out what portion you got?
Yeah, I mean, that is a challenge without a doubt. And it's that if you want to know specifically, it's going to take a lot of measuring, you know, and really paying attention and math, you know, and figuring out the recipe. I have done that though. In the Carb Manager, you can make your own recipes. And I've done that. Like I'm like, okay, we're going to have, like I make a homemade pizza. And so I put all the stuff in there and then I just figure out about how much of it did I have. And I mean,
so yeah, that has it in the MyFitnessPal also. You can put in the whole recipe and then put how many servings and then you put how many servings you had.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Okay. So that's going to be the key to dividing that up, is setting up the recipes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful.
Were one of you guys going to say something? I thought I heard something. No. So yeah, that's, yeah. And I, you know, changing this, because this lifestyle is not an event, it's a process, you know, and changing our life is a process. It's not like just we're going to do this and we're done. It's a process, and the key to it is our relationship with food. It's not food, it's our relationship with food, you know. So it's focusing on that too, and thinking about how do I think of food and how do I think of sugar. And if you're like me, you grew up in a home where sugar was a reward. And so when you want a reward, you want sugar. Or, you know, I mean, TV movies tell us that if you're depressed, you need a gallon of Haagen-Dazs, you need a little pint of it, you know. I mean, so we are programmed to think of food in that as something that is a comfort, and it's our relationship with that food that is the key to becoming healthy. But we see where this is taking us if we keep going down that road. So I really commend you guys for taking the steps, being, you know, having courage to make the step in the beginning, and then now we're in the grit in the middle of it, and determined to stick to it and all those things, and stay committed. So yeah, anybody else, anything else before we wrap this up? I'm going to stop the recording.